Max Allan Collins is a lifelong resident of Muscatine, Iowa, from where he's built an accomplished and celebrated career as a mystery writer. Awards over his lifetime include Grand Master by the Mystery Writers of America, multiple Seamus Awards from the Private Eye Writers of America, an Eye for Life Achievement Award, and a Hammer Award for making a major contribution to the private eye genre. As a freelance writer, he's had to pave his own way in a genre that was just getting off the ground. Both mystery novels and graphic novels are so commonplace today, it's hard to imagine a time without them. During his career, he remained true to his dream and learned how to make a living with his creative talent. He started writing short stories in middle school, wrote a novel every summer in high school, and is still going strong.
Focused, driven, witty, loving, inquisitive, generous, loyal and trusting, but vengeful.
Oh, well, the other thing about Max is he is a quick wit, a very quick wit. And so one of the things you learn is watch your back, because if you do or say something stupid, you are gonna just get that ground into you for sometimes weeks, maybe years, depending upon whatever it was that came out of your mouth that maybe shouldn't have.
He calls out of the blue. Not many people do that anymore. We will chat. I'm going to talk to you for just a minute. I got one question. This is how it starts. And then an hour later, oh, I better go. I'm supposed to be working. And we both say that. And so it starts with this one thing. And he will occasionally call me with a research question about something, because research is my favorite thing about writing fiction, and he knows that. So if it's something he can't find the answer to on his own, he'll call me and he's like, get me the answer to this, can you? Yeah, sure. By the way, have you seen? Have you heard? And then it's albums and movies and whatever else we're interested in for the next hour. When we tell people that we're close, we're like, we have about 80% the same taste. And on the other 20%, I gotta tell you, Max is just wrong.
One of, again, sort of the things about Max you find out whenever you're around him, I mean, he's very focused, you know, and he's got a lot of drive. So whatever he's working on, whether, you know, that's band stuff for us, even if it's just playing a gig, just within the years we've been playing together, you know, he talks about projects he's working on, whether that's writing a novel, his book series, he's got several of those. He does movie novelizations, you know, and all of the comic book stuff he's involved in. So he has just got multiple projects going at all times. And you watch him just hammer away at these things. So that's also fun too, but you know, that drive translates over to the band. That's just kind of how he is.
I think his mentors saw several things. They saw talent, drive, ambition, and I think an honesty with the type of story he wanted to tell. But he nearly did not get into the writer's workshop, because at that time they had a very low opinion of pulp and crime and fiction and mysteries. So he was really a pioneer in just kind of opening the floodgates there to different types of writing.
The collaboration with Barb has just been fabulous. That grew out of Mystery as well, because Terry Beatty and I were also doing a comic book called Wild Dog that DC Comics put out, and we were swamped. And there was a backup feature in the Mystery comic book called Mike Mist, Minute Mysteries. And I said to Barb, do you think, you don't think you could write these? You know, and I'm thinking, you know, just, you've been critiquing my stuff and editing me for all these years. And so she takes a swing at it, and it was one of those things where she gave me the 2-page or 3-page script, and I read this and said, this is really good. You know, it's a little too good as far as I'm concerned, because she really knocked it out of the park.
So as far as collaboration on the project, you know, some directors are just focused on everything about the process. And Max was more focused about the performances and kind of left the camera movement and action and tone of lighting and everything fall to me. And we just really developed a great relationship, a great creative relationship, and became a great friend relationship. So we've become really good friends and have been collaborating on projects ever since.
We've done 30 novels, 20 some comic books, and jigsaw puzzles, one video game. The way Al and I have come to our style is, a lot of it is mutual respect at this point. You know what the other guy's going to bring you, and you know what he's good at. And so I get all the direction stuff, and God forbid, if there's any arithmetic stuff, I get that. I put dialogue in, but I know it's not going to be there when I'm done. It's okay, his is better than mine. And this is a guy who's written 100 books without me. It's not like we're equals. And I know when he says something, he's probably got a little more experience at this than I do. So let's trust him. And so far, we've been really lucky. We've never had a serious disagreement in 30-some books.
Max attended Muscatine High School and then Muscatine Community College before transferring to the University of Iowa. He has claimed that his education received at MCC was superior to any other until he began his MFA program.
I had better instruction at Muscatine Community College as an undergraduate than I had instruction as an undergraduate at the University of Iowa. Now, when I got to graduate school, it's a different story. The graduate school got itself up to the MCC level.
He returned to MCC as an English instructor. It was during this time that his book, Mourn the Living, was published in 1971. His inspiration came from local events. As he said, people are killing each other all the time around here. There's plenty for me to write about.
So I grew up just obviously always surrounded by books, and they were both very supportive of me in reading. But when I was in middle school, I think, I started reading my dad's books. It was probably maybe a little early, so I would sneak them, I would hide them in my textbooks and read them through class. I'm sure I wasn't being that sneaky, but the teacher's probably just like, well, he's reading, so it's okay. When I had my first book and I finished the first draft, I went to him and I said, I don't know if I'm doing this right. And he read it over and did some, you know, gave me some edits and gave me some suggestions, and we'd sit down and talk about it, and he pretty much gave me a master class on writing.
If you look at my role in Cruisin', as I came in just as a drummer, you know, Max was very interested, could I sing? And if I could sing, what could I sing? You know, so as a band, you know, I started off singing background vocals here or there, you know, just kind of adding in a little extra. And then that has morphed into me singing more. So it's, you know, for me, it's working with him and him giving me vocal coaching just to say, hey, here's how you do this, here's how you pronounce this. Sing this, hold this note, don't hold this note, sing this, get off of it.
I learned everything about writing from my husband. I learned so much just reading him, his style of writing, and just how to write. I mean, if you wanted to make a beautiful piece of furniture, you first have to understand the construction of it.
My parents did something very smart. They said to me at the beginning of the summer, now you've got a choice. You can go out and get a summer job, or if you stay home and work at your writing, we'll let you not get a job and we'll keep your allowance going. And that was $5.50 a week, so that was big money to be a paid writer. So I wrote, I think, 3 or 4 novels toward the end of junior high and through high school. The next one I wrote was at Muscatine Community College, and that one sold. Although it did not sell immediately, but it was the book that got me into the writer's workshop at the University of Iowa. When I did start writing about a big city, it was Chicago. And I'm kind of, to some degree, known as somebody who writes about Chicago. That was really a breakthrough for me, figuring out that I could write about this part of the world. I didn't have to write about New York and pretend I knew about New York. Didn't have to write about LA and pretend I knew about LA. And at that time, almost every mystery novel was being written with those two settings. And I remember vividly going home, and we were in a little apartment, and breaking down really to Barb and saying, "Is this it? I've assumed I'm going to be a published writer since I was 9 years old. Was I wrong?" Because you don't know whether you're a writer. It's a terrible thing. You don't know until somebody's willing to give you money for what you did.
And he went through the writer's workshop, and I know for a fact that they were hard on him. He was writing pulp fiction in a place where literature was the prize. And he always had the backbone to stand up and say, "This is literature, you just don't understand it."
What happened was, a couple of weeks later, I heard from my agent that my book, Bait Money, the second Nolan book, had sold. It was Christmas Eve, 1971, and that turned everything around.
When he came up with Nate Heller, he did something that no one had ever done. We talk about Dashiell Hammett invented the modern private eye novel. And in doing so with Sam Spade, in The Maltese Falcon, he laid out every trope that everybody has ever used. And it takes somebody who is inventive to find a way to do something different than that. And Max did that with Nathan Heller when he took a private eye and put him into an investigation that actually existed.
You know, I would definitely say, I mean, Road to Perdition, the Hollywood movie, that's the big one. And especially coming from, the graphic novel.
And a guy from DC Comics sat down with me and said, "We're thinking about doing some noir graphic novels. Would you like to do one?" I'm like, "Yes." And he said, "Do you have any ideas?" I didn't. And off the top of my head, I pitched the Road to Perdition idea, which grew out of several things. It grew out of a famous manga, Japanese comic book, called Lone Wolf and Cub, which was about a samurai who pushed his little baby son around in a baby cart while he was killing people. The other thing was that I had done some research on my book, True Detective, that never really got into the book much, about John Looney and his son Connor Looney in the Quad Cities, it was basically the Godfather story of the early 1900s. And so those two things just came together in my mind, and in that moment, and I pitched this idea. The DC editor bought it, and I went home and started working on it, and it was really just another one of the gigs I had. In fact, this wonderful artist, Richard Piers Rayner, was so good, but so slow that I would write, 50 pages of script and forget about it. And the phone would ring like a year and a half later. "We need more Road to Perdition pages." Road to what? And, yeah, I remember. How many more pages? Another 50, 60 pages, Richard slow. So I'd write them and I'd give them to him. And ultimately, by the time we had submitted the whole book, the line had gone broke. And so I went to the publisher and said, "Look, I know that you're shutting down this program, but this is the best thing I've ever done in comics. This is it. And it's sitting there, you own it. Bring it out. Just bring it out." And they brought it out, and as they say, the rest is history. About a year after the book came out, and it was very well received, but it wasn't a bestseller. And graphic novels at that point were almost unknown. And so my agent calls and says, "Who's the biggest star in Hollywood?" And I said, "I don't know, Bruce Willis." He says, "No, Tom Hanks." I said, "Okay, Tom Hanks is the biggest star in Hollywood. Well, he's going to star in your movie." "What movie?" "Well, the Xanax are getting together with Spielberg, and they're going to make a movie out of Road to Perdition. And I said, all right, I'm sure. He said, no, it really, and then this succession of phone calls happened over a period of about a week. It would be like, okay, you know who's going to play John Looney? No, Paul Newman. Get out. Paul Newman. Then they've got Jude Law signed, and they got Daniel Craig signed, and then they got Sam Mendes signed, who had just won the Oscar for American Beauty. And this all happened in about a week.
The thing I love about Max is he's got the biggest collection of films you've ever seen, and they're not just, you know, Blu-ray discs. They go back to VHS and Beta, laser discs, you name it, he's got it, and he's got every release of the film on every medium that's possible. He can tell you the actors, the lines from the movie, the writers. He is a film buff historian. I've just learned so much from Max about just the history of some of the major films that he really, really appreciates. Max and I, after every project, we then move into the edit suite. And I think that's where Max and I really enjoy being together and creating the final piece from all the pieces that we put together during the production. I think he's learned a lot from me, and I've really learned a lot from him about storytelling. And I will always remember the time we spend in the edit suites.
It all grows out of me getting essentially fired from Dick Tracy. I had done it for 15 years. The very day that I found that out, my agent called me and said that my book contract had been canceled. So like any freelancer, I had to scramble. And one of the things that I did was I pursued some Hollywood stuff. So I came back and we decided to try to do some independent film here. So Mommy and Mommy's Day and these various movies that I have been involved with all grew out of basically me being fired.
Then I saw the light beer from Miller. It's got 1/3 less calories than a regular beer, and it's less filling, she whispered. But the best thing is, it tastes so great. She poured, we drank. To be continued.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
Now, over the years, I had written Mickey letter after letter after letter, and he never, ever responded. Finally, when my first 2 books were published, and I sent them to him with a letter, he then wrote me back and thanked me. So now you cut to Milwaukee hotel room, they knock on the door, Mickey comes to the door, and the gentleman from the convention says, "Well, Mickey, this is Max Collins." And Mickey says, "Well, I know Max. We've been corresponding for years." And I said, "That's right, Mickey. 100 letters from me, 1 letter from you." And then he laughed, and we became instant friends. We began doing projects together. We did anthologies together. We did a comic book together called Mike Danger. We did all kinds of stuff together. We had a great relationship. And it was a dream come true to have one of your heroes turn out to be hero-worthy. And I would get phone calls from him, and it would be unbelievable to me that I'm getting a phone call from somebody that famous. One day, I got one of these phone calls from him, one of these amazing phone calls, and he was just his usual cheerful, upbeat self, and then casually he dropped a bomb that he'd been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. But Mickey had an incredibly positive attitude about it, so we stayed in touch. And about a few months later, I got a call from him, and he was working on the last Mike Hammer that he was going to write. And he said, "I don't know if I'm going to get this finished. Will you finish it for me?" I said, "I hope I don't have to." "You know I will." Apparently, he hung up and he went to his wife, Jane, and said, "When I'm gone, there's going to be a treasure hunt around here. I've got a lot of unfinished material here. I want you to gather everything of mine that's not finished and give it to Max. He will know what to do." And so I've finished 13 Mike Hammer novels that he began. I've completed 2 non-Mike Hammers, and we've got 2 more to do, and that's going to probably wrap up the effort.
up and down the Mississippi, cruising back and forth from town to town. We are cruising, and we're still around.
You know, driven, focused, organized, you know, and then he plays rock music with us, you know.
In 2018, we got invited to be inducted into the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, essentially a second time, as Cruisin'. And we performed there for a huge audience, and were very warmly received. And it's an extremely exciting thing. It should have been like the period on the sentence, and I should have said, now I'm going to walk away. I've been doing this since 1965. No more rock and roll. And I'm like, no, I think I'll keep doing this.
Then Al came up with a good idea for the bridge. I had no lyrics for the bridge of the song. Well, he came up with a great idea of lyrics of a lot of the places, especially around this area, that Cruisin' had played, had performed at. So that's what you hear in the bridge.
Three River Days, Moline Jamboree, Brew and Ducky's Lagoon, Big Beach Party over Williamsburg Way, on stage with Peter New.
That's some of my best memories are of watching him play in a band, and I'm thrilled that we were able to come here with the kids and bring them to some of the shows too, with some of the cruising out at the winery and places like that.
He's happiest when he's playing in the band. It's a really wonderful outlet for him. He can forget about whatever trials and tribulations have come in during the day, lose himself in the music. I mean, I was there from the very beginning when he formed his band in 1965. I love following the band and the music that they play, which is mostly 60s and 70s. I can't say that I have a favorite song. I do love when he sings ballads because he has a wonderful, just a beautiful voice.
Listen to my heartbeat. Listen to my heartbeat. Listen to my heartbeat. It's beating for you.
There's several perks for being in Cruisin'. Since he writes his own material, it's nice to be a part of a creative process and making something your own. And then with Max being Max, the other perk of being in Cruisin' is because of his professional writing status, we have over the years played Comic Cons, Mystery Writers Conventions. So Cruisin' has played gigs in Omaha, Milwaukee, Chicago, St. Louis, kind of around this general area.
And I try to talk him into, you know, you don't need to have so many deadlines and just do what you want to do. And he says, well, this is all what I want to do. You don't turn the stories off, and he's got to get them out there somehow. So I know he's going to keep on doing that.
And I know Max will always write. He's never had writer's block. He will, as long as he can and is able, he'll be writing something.
One of the reasons I write to the degree that I do is I think I can be around longer even after I'm gone if there are people reading my books, watching my little movies, and you know, so I'm still around.
Just for living here, living his life here, doing what he loves to do, in a town where he's comfortable and grew up, that's pretty good. That's pretty amazing.
Collins has published over 100 books, graphic novels, comics, video games, and jigsaw puzzles. He has also wrote or directed 9 feature films. His work ethic, drive, innovation, education, entrepreneurism, and talent has resulted in success. We are honored to tell this story through the many chapters of Max's creative contributions and look forward to turning many more pages as he continues to write and produce. Stay tuned for the 3rd act. We celebrate Max Allan Collins as an MCC legend.
What I'd really like on my tombstone is he's still alive. He's still here.
never took a trick. Bananas just a fruit to me, the peels are on the ground. But something screaming deep in me and I know kind of sound. There's a psychedelic siren